Welcome, everybody, to the Resilient Minds podcast. I'm super grateful and excited to welcome Jillian Turecki. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Well, you actually pronounced it like the Polish way, like the old school Polish way, but it's Turecki. But yeah, you did it, you were correct.
I'm Polish, so this is
I was going to
why.
ask you where you were from. So that's,
Yeah.
yes. So that's why, yeah. But it's
So
Turecki.
Jillian Turecki is she. For those of you that don't know, she has an amazing podcast called Jillian On Love. She's a certified relationship coach, teacher, author, and this hunger and this fueling of being by this like expression of curiosity about what makes relationships thrive has really taken her to really create and cultivate over thousands of different teachings, courses, writings, and revolutionize people's ways to look at relationships and themselves so that they can start to enhance these romantic relationships. So, this beautiful energy that she brings to the table through her compassion and her direct and very authentic style of being, coaching, teaching, and writing is something I'm super inspired to just be here with and connect with, and really, help to see this amazing woman shine. So, welcome to the show.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And thank you for that beautiful introduction. I'm happy to be
It's so
here.
nice to have you. Yeah, it's like it's beautiful to watch your work and continue to see you grow and thrive. And I didn't know you were Polish, so that's amazing.
Half Polish, father's side, Polish, mother's
Amazing.
side, something
Immigrated?
else. Yes.
Immigrated.
He was born in Poland, left during, he was he was like an infant, left during World War II, and then went to Sweden, then to South Africa, went to university in South Africa, met my mother in South Africa, and then they came to the United States in 1968.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. So tell us a little bit about what encouraged that, like was your hunger or your curiosity based off of relationships something that had evolved from observing your parents and the way that they were with each other? What was this curiosity about relationships that kind of started? Because, on the podcast, I always talk about our experiences and how it contributes to our why, our purpose.
Yeah.
And I know that coming from, Polish parents, for myself, that level of compatibility and the way that they were for each other was something that really made me flourish in the way that I saw their dedication to another. And I don't know if that's the same story for you. However, I'd love to get curious about that in terms of that relationship and what maybe had transpired or not.
Yeah, sure. So my parents had a terrible marriage, absolutely terribly toxic, terrible marriage. And I've always been totally obsessed with love and relationships. And I always had boyfriends and I was always just really, always just wanted the kind of relationship that was more similar to the relationship that my mom had with my stepfather. And then my father actually was married to someone for 30 years. And that was I think a much better relationship. So I wanted that. And I ended up getting married a little over 10 years ago, and to the person who I thought was the one, and I put that in big quotation marks. And that relationship ended pretty tragically, and it was just really sad. And so I found myself, I thought I'm never going to be someone who's divorced. Like that was like something I was very committed to. But alongside that commitment to never wanting to be divorced, I didn't have any thoughts around like, well, what has to happen in order to be someone who's never divorced? Like, how do I have to choose? Like, what do I have to honor inside myself in order to choose well? How do I have to show up in a relationship? And so when my marriage ended, I just became obsessed with what makes a relationship truly healthy and thrive. And I've been obsessed with that for 10 years. And I was obsessed before that with the relationship with self, because prior to becoming a relationship coach, I taught yoga, and I taught yoga for almost 20 years, and I've been practicing it for 26 years. So I just I've always been very well studied and very curious about the mind body connection, and just love in general. So my curiosity is really from pain and from seeing things not work out. So that's actually what inspired me.
Beautiful. It's interesting how we can, get inspired by pain or pleasure, right? So
Mhm.
it's interesting that we're driven in multiple different ways. And so
Yes.
now, when you, as you were growing up, was there a specific trigger or a specific circumstance, or was it just a constant curiosity that you were observing in your parents and their dynamic, and then with your step parents as well? And was there like an internal yearning that kind of was communicating to you to say, hey, I need to figure this out. I need to know how that feels, and I want to have that loving and abundant relationship?
It was never a cognitive process at all. It
Mhm,
was more a yearning for deep love.
mhm.
And so that's really all it was. There was no cognitive process to it. There was no logic behind it. It was just more of a yearning of something that I wanted. But I never, until 10 years ago, really investigated what it actually takes to have that. And I have had it. I mean, I've had some really lovely relationships, and I've had relationships that were not so lovely. So it's always been something that I've wanted to sort of figure out, but it wasn't like I said, it wasn't an intellectual process until about 10 years ago.
It's funny because about 10 years ago, I got married as well. Didn't work out. And uh, I just didn't have the awareness. And I think
Yeah.
that what really held me back was I was still yearning to understand what my purpose was myself, right? So like
Mhm.
I needed to heal this relationship with myself and this inner child needed to be healed before he could actually commit to having children himself or anything like this. And it's interesting how
Yeah.
society, we don't get taught about this type of introspection. So what would you
No.
share, or what would you suggest for anybody that's out there and like, what do you mean? Like, what are you talking about, this relationship with yourself? I thought that relationship is just external.
Yeah. I think it's really about ask getting self it's about self-reflection. And I think it's reflecting um on your life, and reflecting on what is maybe not working in your life, and trying to identify the patterns that you have that are getting in the way of having a better life, whether that's a better romantic life or a better financial life, because we all have different areas of life. So I think it's just about being self-reflective, and just building that awareness, which can come with meditation. Building awareness also comes with exercise. I really think that we train ourselves to be more self-aware when we work with our bodies. So with our breath, with movement, with slowing down. And some people also it's really powerful for them to journal. But it's really about the questions that we ask ourselves. Like, why isn't this, an open-ended question is not, why isn't this working out? That's a very open-ended question. But you can get even more specific, which is, I've noticed that when I do this, then this happens, versus when I do that, something else happens. I wonder what that's all about. And I think that people it's very important for people to be aware of what their patterns are, to be aware of how the pain of their childhood shows up in their adulthood and their adult romantic relationships, and to really honestly look in the mirror and to be able to recognize the ways in which we get in our own way. That's the first step.
I love how you bring up the mirror, intimacy, right? And to me, I see you. And it's so important because when we do take more of this responsible role of that relationship with ourselves, we refine that relationship, I believe, with something greater than ourselves as a result. And then that mirror shows up in our direct reality right in front of us. So it's beautiful to observe and appreciate the mirror right now in this moment, because we're speaking the very same language, and it's interesting to observe what it means when you do go down that internal path. So if somebody is really here learning and listening uh, in a very deep way, and maybe has done some of the work, and they are not acknowledging their mirrors enough in their surrounding areas, how would you suggest anyone to do that internal work and acknowledging that internal behavior so that the mirrors can show up in a more brilliant or refined or healthy way?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to encourage people to get too inside their heads
Mm.
and to get too obsessed with themselves and their lives. I think it's just about, do you feel motivated to pay attention to certain things in your life so that you can have better relationships? That's it. It has to start with that. It really, really does. It has to start with the desire. If someone doesn't have the desire to improve areas of their life or to improve their relationships, that mirror is never going to actually become, they're never going to look in the mirror. It's, so I honestly, people just have to feel motivated to want to do that, to want to actually be the kind of person who's self-reflective, and someone who wants to grow. Like if you want to grow and you want to learn and you want to have more meaningful relationships, then it's just about paying attention to your patterns.
And do you think when you say being stuck in their heads, what if somebody doesn't know what that means? What would that mean? How would you express
So
that?
you don't want to be constantly like ruminating and obsessing and overanalyzing, because people, when we overanalyze and ruminate, we're unhappy. There's no correlation between peace, happiness, and overthinking. Overthinking leads to a lot of suffering. So I want people to be self-reflective and to think about these things. And maybe it's something that you do first thing in the morning and right before you go to sleep at night. But it's not, and it's just like, like I said, the building the awareness muscle is almost like it just becomes second nature, where you start to notice things. It's like, oh, I'm saying something right now and I'm kind of being a jerk. And I'm noticing that I'm saying this, or I'm saying something right now and I'm kind of lying, or I'm saying something right now and I'm being a little manipulative. Maybe I should just, okay, let me stop. Let me stop and let me say something that's a little bit more truthful. It's just, that's the process.
Presence. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, well, presence with yourself and awareness. It's just having an awareness of your the way that you impact your surroundings. And
And
part
that
of your
could be
surroundings are the people in it. Yeah.
yeah, so that could be a great way of how you influence. And I think, this is something that, when you can walk into those environments, right? And uh, you're paying attention to the way that you're influencing yourself as a result, and then as a result of the way that you're being with yourself, you can then walk into those environments and come from a healthy space to influence the environments around you.
Yes.
And this is something that I'm super curious about always, because I noticed that the more that we actually pay attention to our own energy, then we can actually walk into those certain experiences and not be in our head, but be super present to what's happening around us and really
Yeah.
flow with the energy to learn to listen, to dance, to play, to, you know, be curious, to be strong and move, be like water.
Yeah, exactly.
So we talked about a little bit before I got on, or before we got on, about Date with Destiny with Tony Robbins. So have
Mhm.
you? When was the last time that you attended Date with Destiny, or when was the first time?
The first time was in 2014, and that was about 2 weeks after my mom had just died, and about a couple of months after my husband left.
I'm sorry to
So
hear.
I was totally in crisis. I was actually in the film, I Am Not Your Guru. So like that, I was at that event. You know, uh, the day that my world fell apart, I started speaking to a neighbor of mine who was also a coach, and this was before this is before everyone was a coach. And you know, she brought up Tony Robbins, and I just remembered him as like the infomercial guy. I was not in any, I was very much entrenched in the yoga world, but not in the personal development world. So, and then I started listening to his stuff, and it just all made a lot of sense. And it was the thing that helped me get up in the morning when I really felt like I couldn't. And so I went to Date with Destiny in 2014. And I had already started to coach a little bit beforehand, but that really helped me steer me in a different path. And yeah, just it really helped me.
It's interesting because I remember watching that movie, I Am Not Your Guru, and
Hmm.
thinking, wow, how am I ever gonna afford to go to one of those events?
Hmm.
You know, and like telling
Hmm.
myself the story of what I couldn't do versus stepping
Hmm.
into the possibility of making it happen and then finally making it happen. So I think, was this something as before when you were going into yoga, and how did yoga, Tony Robbins, the relationship, and then your relationship with your ex-husband, your own life, yoga, how, and then now learning from doing some stuff with Tony, and then doing your own stuff and your own experiences. How did that all now start to transmute into your own unique way of communicating to the world your experience, your mission, and now doing what you do? How did that all transition into this
Yeah.
type of beautiful, immersive work?
So it started with my interest in the mind body connection,
Mhm.
and how our psychology affects our bodies, and how our bodies affect our minds, and deepening one's relationship with self through the breath and through the body, which is really the practice of yoga. Is how do we um, harness the mind to create deeper awareness? How do we harness the body and the mind to create deeper awareness and more bliss? And so it started with the mind body connection. And I was very, as a yoga teacher, I was very gifted in being able to um, look at a person's body, and I would know exactly what they were struggling with. I would know if their back hurt, I would know if their shoulder hurt, I would know if their neck hurt. And I got a very good grasp of what a person's personality traits were that led to some of their physical pain. And so this was something that I always was deeply, deeply fascinated with. And, you know, I don't see myself as a coach. I mean, primarily I see myself as a teacher. So I've felt since a young age very compelled to teach that which is transformative for me personally.
Because you're a student
And
as well.
so, what's that?
because you're a student as well, so
Yeah,
there's teacher
exactly.
and a student, right? And so it's
Exactly,
beautiful.
exactly. I'm a voracious student, and every teacher is a student, and every student is a teacher. So that's always been very sacred to me. Like even just watching like the movie The Karate Kid, and the relationship between Mr. Miyagi and Daniel, like the student teacher, mentor teacher, like learning a craft has always been something that's been incredibly compelling to me. And so, but when I was a few years into teaching yoga, I really wanted more. I just didn't know what that more was. I was like, okay, well, maybe I want to get married and have kids. Where do I want to take this? Because in teaching yoga, the ceiling's quite low. And I wanted to get my hands dirty with something, but I didn't know what. And so with coaching people in their relationships, because I was also so obsessed with like love and what makes a romantic relationship work, I working with people and just sort of understanding how that there's really is no divide between the mind and the body, and then helping people connect with themselves through their body, but also through certain things that they do. And I've also been a student of meditation for a long time. So it all, and then with Tony's work is without him actually saying the words mind body connection, that's very much a big part of his message. And so it just all sort of came together. And then, me being able to integrate my experience as a teacher of yoga with then just my experience in relationships and just my own personal personality, and then plus my experiences with my ex-husband and just in love and experience with parents. It just, I guess over the last 10 years, I've just come to formulate something that's just my own.
Yeah, and it's interesting how we, as we walk the path appears, right? And
Yes,
we start to kind of create that unique way of showing up, and our identity. We decide to step into that identity.
sure.
So I'm curious because you brought up mind body a few times now. What about the spirit part?
To me, it's the same. For
Okay.
me, it's like if I want to connect to, um, like, so the part of us that is actually aware of things is not the ego. It's like it's the deeper part of us. Some would call it like the capital self. It's the witnesser, it's the viewer. So when we deepen awareness, we're deepening our consciousness. And so I believe that there's different layers of consciousness. And some might say that the highest point of consciousness is more like the spirit, the soul. But even if you don't believe in any of that, we all have an intuition, we all have a gut, and a gut feeling about things. And I think that when we are it's like it's really the difference between the part of ourselves that's bogged down with stress and fear, and then the part of ourselves that feels free. And the part of ourselves that feels free, some people have to do a lot of work to access the freer parts of themselves. And, we do that through play, we do that through yoga, we do that through exercise, we do that through connection and connecting with other people. So, I think that all of it is really in service of trying to find that freedom within so that we can feel more like ourselves. And that's how I see spirit.
Beautiful. I love how you connect that back then through the breath work, meditation, and yoga practice, because that's really how that's where the freedom comes, right? And
Yeah.
so I've noticed through my own experiences that I needed to really like completely silent. I needed to put myself into a jungle of like total, silence and by myself to really quiet the mind down. And
Mm-hmm.
it required me, to be in Brazil for quite some time and to really get out of my head and into my like heart. I call it heart, my heart's intelligence, and really feel. And what I would do is a lot of the breath work, or I would do a lot of diving to really get that interconnection so I could start listening to the heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're doing yoga, when you're tapping into meditation, when you're tapping into breath work, and you're teaching these in your courses, or illuminating that alongside the practices or your own experiences, if somebody doesn't know how to really feel again, or tap into this gut intuition, tap into this trusting of oneself, because as a man, I really struggled with that, you know.
Yeah.
I really
A lot of
had a
women struggle
very,
with it too. Trust
you
me.
know, yeah. So I really struggled with it. I didn't, you know, I had this intuition, and it's like I would show up in a place where, oh, don't worry about the intuition, just keep going, the mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just figure it out, or find a solution, or just make it
Mm-hmm.
happen, just force it,
Mm-hmm.
go, make it, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I realized that for me, this was like I was making a lot of things actually repel. I was repelling a
Mm-hmm.
lot of things. And, you know, I read Dr. David Hawkins' Force versus Power, and I was like, oh my goodness. And then I did a lot of the work, and then I, you know, I mean, the journey's been for a very long time, and I'm still learning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it was really when I tapped into this knowing, into this deep feeling, that I started to really step into a deeper space of identity. And you know, obviously when I felt it, when I learned to it, you know, the first thing that you want to do is tell everybody, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, like,
exactly.
yeah,
Mm-hmm. You got to keep it
uh,
inside.
yeah. And so this was something that was really something that was huge in the way that, especially when you want to express it or share it in a way that is forceful, it was still coming out with that force. And so my question is this, with all of that, you know, pre-framing, uh, is, if there are men or women out there right now listening to us, and they really are uncertain about their purpose, uncertain about why they're here, uncertain about like what's their next kind of uh, journey, or what's the next step in their journey, what could they take away in this moment to help them kind of step in a little bit more into that space of peace, that space of trust, that space of knowing themselves, so that they can feel rather than think?
Yeah, I mean, you have to take a time out from all the thinking, and intuition, like anything else, is like a muscle that needs to be built. And you can start with just, I think that I find that the early morning, before you look at your phone, before you eat, you can go to the bathroom and have your glass of water, and that's about it. And I find that the early morning is when our subconscious is really the loudest. And I think it's in those moments where we just have to get really quiet and maybe ask ourselves, and sometimes writing it down is actually really helpful, and just asking ourselves, like if you're trying to decide between two things, like when you think of each one, like what do you feel inside? Is there a contraction, or do you feel like a release? When you think of something, does your jaw get tight, or when you think of it, do your eyes get soft? And I think that that's a really powerful way to train intuition, because again, it's listening to your body's cues. And when we're like, busy with our day and go, 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 and caffeinated or whatever, like it's very hard to connect to that. So I would say start with the mornings, start with getting really quiet, maybe like just closing your eyes and just breathing and listening to sensations in your bodies, and then writing it down. Like if you're stuck about something or you don't know which direction to take, like just start to journal. I mean, honestly, I've never been a journaling kind of girl. I never kept a diary or anything like that. But the book, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, really changed my life. And there's a lot in that, but the main takeaway is, if within the first few minutes of waking up, if you can write 3 pages, and those sentences should not and are not coherent, you're never going to read them again. You don't have to worry about your handwriting, you just brain dump for 3 pages and you don't stop until you get the 3 pages out. And that I have found to be, to date, the most profound tool to helping people discover their inner artist, because I really think that there is a creative person that lives inside everyone. Now, creativity isn't just about like, being a painter, or like, being a graphic designer or being a dancer. Like everyone has a creative part to themselves. And I think that the path to peace is the path to really tapping into that part of yourself. And so The Artist Way, that book, is a book to help people tap into their inner creative. And I really think it's incredibly powerful.
I love I love that you brought up the artist, and I love that you brought up creativity, because this really ultimately refines our res- maybe our imagination. There we go. Our playfulness, our innocence, our
Yes.
ability to like, hey, let's go play. Let's make things happen. Let's have some
Mm-hmm.
fun. And this is something that I know, as I was growing up, was something so important for me. It's like, what do you mean I can't do that? I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna go make it happen. What do you mean? And so this artist, this like playful creator, and how we can use that to implement it in business, in
Sure.
relationships, in our health, and really make this world our playground, versus like
Yes.
having these approaches where we think that the world, is so dull. It's so magnificent, and we can
Yes.
really step into that.
Yes. Yes. So I think that's really the name of the game, honestly.
Beautiful. It's amazing to observe and hear the way that you're able to tap into that yourself, and then how you've done that for so many different people. So, what's currently happening in your reality, and what are you working on?
So yeah, I'm actually writing a book right now. So that's the biggest thing that I'm working on. And that's been the biggest undertaking, one of the bigger undertakings of my life, is writing a book. And it's harder than you think. It's harder than you think, but again, I felt very compelled, and fortunately someone wanted me to do it, and I'm doing it. So I'm writing a book right now. I'm still creating, I still do live courses twice a year, one for people getting over a breakup or a divorce, heartbreak, and then one for singles who are looking to find a really good well-matched partner for them. So those are the main things that I am working on right now. And of course, my podcast, Jillian On Love.
Amazing. So, if somebody wants to get more information about your courses, where's the best way to find you?
You just have to know my first and last name. So if you go to jillianturecki.com, and then I also have a Substack. So I have a weekly newsletter. So basically you want to go to jillianturecki.com, and also want to go to my Instagram, because I have everything listed there, and that's where I do a lot of promotions and stuff. And that's at Jillian Turecki.
Cool. And what about relationship? What about love life right now?
Love life right now. Oh, I keep my cards very close to my chest about that one. I don't really
Mm,
talk about it, but let's just say I'm very content.
mm. Content with yourself, or do you have a relationship out there that you're enjoying and expressing?
Oh, I'm just really content with myself.
Mm,
Yeah,
beautiful.
very content with myself. Yeah. And
And
fostering a lot of really interesting relationships right now. So that's what I'm focusing on.
beautiful. And with regards to the book, when are you expecting to release it?
So fingers crossed, February 2025.
Hmm, beautiful.
Yeah. So in a
Amazing.
little over
And
a year.
so you're every day, are you getting inspiration? How's that process been for you when you're as you're creating it?
I've been preparing this book for 2 years. So
Mhm.
now it's really more, I don't need the inspiration's all there. Now it's just about synthesizing everything that's in my brain onto a page and making it make sense. That's basically it.
Do you ever feel what's like that creative process for you been in terms of the
Uh,
synthesization? So, for me, it's always been about how can we have a clear step process of like making sure that that story extends through my own experience and then it can be resonant with the external world. So I'm curious to know how that's been for you.
um, my creative process is things really come to me early in the morning or on my walks with my dog. And then I always something comes to my mind and I have like in my phone, like my notes app is like years and years and years of notes. And so that's my creative process. And then in terms of writing, my most creative work I have to do in the morning because I kind of turn into a pumpkin at like 4 o'clock. And so I have to get my most difficult writing done very early in the morning before 11 or 12 o'clock. And then the other stuff I can do a little bit later. Everyone has to find their rhythm,
What does that mean to you, rhythm?
their cadence, their flow.
Hmm. Not their routine?
Um, well, routine is part of a flow.
Hmm.
Yeah. Your flow, your routine. I think that's all. I think they're all sort of connected.
Yeah, I can say that for me that when I was always like I mean I find that rhythm has allowed me to dance more when where the routine I was too structured.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think routine is an interesting thing. I think it's necessary. And I also think deviating from routine is also necessary. So
Mm,
it's really about finding that balance. I mean, I think it's very common for people to be too structured and then they're just exhausted from being too structured. But then the pendulum swings too far in the other direction. And then like everything is about water and there's no structure. And they're like, then
I
it's like
agree.
chaos. And they're like, oh my God, I have to get a routine. So I think again, it's just about figuring out what works for you and doing it. And a lot of it is just experimenting with what works versus what doesn't work.
It really it's like failing forward, except not failing
Yeah,
because you see the lessons in it all.
exactly. Exactly.
Um, when I was living in Spain, I spent a lot of time around very high flying people that were like really creative, but they didn't have any grounded structure, right? And I
Mm,
recognized that that was what was happening within myself, and as a result, I was like, I need to, rebuild my structure and make sure that I'm moving forward.
sure.
So with this creative, artistic way, and having that component of maybe routine rhythm, this creative structure, as long as you're also being this artist and finding this balance, right, in their own way of like really expressing themselves or being who they are, trusting in what they can do to deliver their own vibrancy and their own uniqueness and their own way of being. Is there something other than the writing in the morning that you um, have maybe in your book or through your courses you can suggest for anybody to take this experience of their life and really make it something way more magical for the people that they really want to serve, that they really want to help, that they really want to contribute to.
I think
Because
moving your body is essential for
ah,
everyone. And that doesn't look the same for everyone, and not everyone has the same physical capacity, but moving your body in some way every day is essential.
so writing, moving your body, finding that routine, creating structure, really finding the balance, staying out of the mind.
Yeah, connecting with others, really important. Staying connected with others. Isolation is not good for our mental health at all. So staying connected with others, doing your, and also you have to do your responsibilities of the day. You know, you have to get stuff done and staying committed to that.
When you say stuff done, committed, making
Your
sure,
responsibilities for the day, your responsibilities for the day, you know, whatever that is. If you have kids, there's certain things you have to do, you know, kids, you know, there are things about life that, you know, we have responsibilities, we have things that we have to do, right? So part of a person's routine is also doing the things that you need to do.
I think that it's all, every single moment is, so see, this is where I kind of like it, for me, it doesn't make, like, it's a little bit, because every moment is a responsibility. Every moment is something that we need to do. Every experience is something, every expression, every conversation, because every single moment is so sacred that everything that we do, it's what we need to. And so this is why it's like, I went into my mind for a second, like, what do you mean? Because to me, that it doesn't compute. And so to me, it's like, I always say life is an altar, each moment is a prayer. So if we're spending each moment with absolute meaning, and everything has meaning, if we really believe in that, then, well, our responsibility is in everything.
Well, I think that's a great belief system to have. And I think that really would help a lot of people to see that everything has a purpose, everything has meaning. And so everything is an act of just, everything that we do is in service of that. Yeah, that is a very good way to approach life. For sure.
Yay.
Yeah,
Yay.
amazing.
I think, not I think, I feel that we're really translating uh, that awareness more, that we're all contributing to this work, because it's a team effort.
Yes, it is.
You know, the more of us that are learning these tools, the more of us that are sharing these tools, the more of us that are cultivating awareness, setting new intentions, focusing our attention out there into, uh, not forcing, but just being.
Mm-hmm.
It allows more of us to uniquely hold space for other individuals that want to walk the path, or that are yearning to build that relationship with themselves, or that want to
Mm-hmm.
ultimately find a better partner, better business, better, you know, health relationship with the way they want to step into their bodies.
Yes. Yes. 100%. I
Beautiful.
agree.
Yeah. So Jillian, what about your family now? Like, what's that dynamic now? Is like, your parents still around? How's that being?
No, both my parents are dead.
Hmm.
Yeah, both my parents have passed away. It's me and my stepfather passed away. So I have two older sisters. So as far as family, it's me and my two older sisters. Yeah.
And amazing. And how old are your sisters? Are they much older than you, or?
Yes. So they're both, one is about 4.5 years older than me, and the other one is we have a huge age difference because we have different fathers. So it's about a 16-year age difference. Yeah.
Beautiful. And do you guys stay in contact?
Oh yeah, we're all very close.
Amazing.
Super, super close. Yeah.
I love that. It's so important, especially for siblings, I think,
I
to
agree.
to stick together.
I agree. Sibling love is and sticking together. I could not agree with you more.
What do you feel like has that helped cultivate the work that you've done in yourself so that that relationship, are they also doing the work themselves? How does that been?
I would say that I'm more the, personal development, self-reflective one, out of us three, but but yet we're all sort of self-reflective. I'm just more like my career reflects that more, but they're self-reflective as well. And you know how it is. There's always like sibling stuff and family stuff. And, as Ram Dass said, if you think you're enlightened, spend some time with family. So there's always stuff like that, but you do the best that you can. And I do think that sibling relationships are extremely important. And I think that one of the greatest gifts that my mother gave us is really making sure that we stayed very connected throughout our lives.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Sisters, I have two sisters myself, so I think that, when I listen to this, it's amazing to observe. I can definitely resonate with the importance of mom always like wanting us to be warm and close to each other. It's my sister's birthday today, so it's beautiful that this
Make
comes
sure
up.
you wish her a happy birthday.
Absolutely. And it's amazing to just see this resonance in you. So yeah, I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I wanted to also, acknowledge the fact that, of the constant consistency and the growth, and it's amazing to observe and pay attention to. And I have a question, a last one that I'd love to ask, in terms of if you had 3 days left to live, what would you do?
I think I would just honestly spend it with my sisters and my dog. Like, I think I would just do that. I would, and not, not just them. I would just, to the best of my ability, spend it with people I love. I'm not about to maybe I'd hop on a plane and go somewhere for 24 hours, maybe, but I think it's just most important just to spend it with the people you love.
Interesting. I love it because every time I ask that, everyone is like that. They want to be with their family. And I really believe family is everything. Family is the dynamic. And if we start to integrate more of those family values into business and culture, and then utilize these practices of relationship and self into every moment, so that culture can have those family values inside of corporate culture, creative culture, community culture, then these relationships with ourselves will start to become the relationships we find with each other.
Sure.
And that really ultimately refines the community we have here on the planet. So let's build it together.
Amen. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you. And is there anything else that you want to add before we go?
No,
Anybody?
I think we covered a lot. I think we covered a lot, and I appreciate it.
You're an amazing woman, and I just want to say thank you again.
Thank you. I so appreciate you.
Hey everyone, and thank you so much for listening to the Resilient Minds. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please make sure to go comment and like and follow us on iTunes or Spotify, and please make sure that if you really love this, to share this episode, and make sure that you're inviting all your friends to like it as we continue to unfold what the beauty of our minds does, more importantly, how powerful our heart level of intelligence can be when we combine our heart and our brain together. And more importantly, make sure you take the time to take a look at what we're doing at Balanced Media Ventures and how we can actually really support you in doubling your impact, your income, and your influence, and how you can bring your life's greatest vision into your purpose and create it from that level of reality. Talk to you soon.